Welcome back to Army and Education. Now, we've talked a lot about the role and action of governments, and so I've been getting a lot of questions about the structure of our government and how we go to war. The legality of warfare is coming up in another video, but this video should support it and will take us from becoming a politician to the hierarchy within the MOD. So let's get cracking. Alright, so most of the things that people actually care about day to day are done by local councils. But for defence, it's the national parliament that matters. Our parliament is bicameral. It's split into two chambers: an unelected upper house, the Lords, who are meant to provide expert advice and rise above petty politics, and the lower house, which is filled with the MPs that you see sitting on the green benches. In theory, anyone can become a politician. All hail Lord Buckethead. All you need is a deposit of £500, and this gets returned to you if you get more than 5% of the vote. However, in reality, campaigns can cost on average between £11,000 and £36,000, with some Conservatives even racking up six-figure sums. Furthermore, most people don't know who their local MP is, and they vote for who they want as the Prime Minister instead. So, unless you are a member of a political party, you probably won't have the time, or the money to campaign properly, or the recognition needed to make you a viable candidate. But you've left the military. You aren't in the police, you're not bankrupt, and you're not a judge, so you can be an active member of a political party. And, having been approved by this party to be its candidate, you've just won your seat in an election. Congratulations! You are now an MP. And, if you are an MP in the largest party, you are sort of part of the government. I say sort of, as unless you hold some sort of responsibility, and this will mean towing the party line in all matters, you're a backbencher, and technically you're part of the legislative rather than the executive branch of government. If this doesn't bother you, you can actually have quite a good career and become a member of a number of different select committees, such as the Defence Select Committee. These are open to anybody in Parliament, and are responsible for discussing proposed laws and policies. They're actually becoming one of the most influential roles you can do, but you still need to keep those discipline-enforcing MPs, known as the whips, on side. These are basically like adjutants in the army and try to ensure that the party's MPs do what they're meant to. Rebel against your party too much, and you can be kicked out of it. But that's not for you. You've been in the military, you like promotion and want to get to the top. So now we need to deal with the term secretary. Alright, in the army we like the term officer for those with responsibility, and we can have OICs, officers in charge, OCs, officers commanding, and COs, commanding officers. But in government they love the terms minister and secretary. So, the leader of the largest party, the Prime Minister, comes up with the number of departments required to run the country. There's usually around about the 15 mark. The three largest of these, the so-called Great Offices of State, are the Home Office, the Foreign Office, and the Treasury. The elected official in charge of each department is usually called the Secretary of State. For example, within the Ministry of Defence, we have the Secretary of State for Defence. Along with a few specialist advisors, these heads of department make up the Cabinet. Now, the Secretary of State has a lot on his plate, so basically he can get an MP to volunteer to be his PA or Chief of Staff. This is known as the Parliamentary Private Secretary, PPS, and is the lowest rung on the governmental ladder. Due to the size and complexity of departments, they'll be split into different functions, and each can be headed up by a minister. For example, in the Ministry of Defence, we have the Minister of Armed Forces, MinAF. The most junior MP with responsibility is known as a Parliamentary Undersecretary. Often these are referred to as Undersecretaries of State, and they'll work both to the Minister and to the Secretary of State. Within the MOD, the Undersecretary has responsibility for defence procurement. The thing is, all of these are elected individuals who may only do a couple of years in the MOD, So we need civil servants to provide civilian expertise to the Secretary of State. These will provide expertise on the running of the departments and are known as Permanent Undersecretaries, or PUSs. Confused yet? I don't blame you, and if you are, feel free to go back and play this video again. But the key thing to note is that the work of a department is directed by the PM and his Secretary of State, but is given guidance on the practicalities of implementing it by a civil servant. The civil servant, though, lacks an understanding of the professional nuances, so into this mix is thrown the professional advisors for the departments. Within the Ministry of Defence, our professional advisor is the Chief of Defence Staff. But who decides whether we go to war? It's certainly not the Chief of Defence Staff. Technically, it's the monarch, as it is the royal prerogative to go to war. But this particular royal prerogative, along with a load of others, now lies with the PM. The next video will look at the justifications for war. But before declaring war, you would like to think that the PM would get the advice of the Chief of Defence Staff, the Secretaries of State for Defence, Foreign Policy, and the Treasury, known as the Chancellor of the Exchequer. He'll probably want advice from their associated PUSs, and that's quite a few personalities, all with their own agendas. So one of the skills of a Prime Minister is the ability to share out limited resources appropriately among the various departments which make up the Cabinet, and come out with a logical and practical way ahead. What's important to note is that the PM does not need Parliament's approval to go to war. But we're a democracy, and Parliament is meant to represent the voice of the people. Because of this, and due to both the nature of public opinion and the need for legitimacy amongst his MPs, Tony Blair sought Parliament's approval prior to invading Iraq, and David Cameron chose to do the same over Syria. In theory, this means that a precedent has been set, and that this new convention means Parliament must now be asked. On the other hand, due to the fallout from Parliament's refusal to conduct meaningful action in Syria in 2013, it may make more sense from a defence and security perspective to revert back to royal prerogative. Having said that, nothing in politics is clear-cut these days. Our governments work best when they have large majorities, but with the balance of power in the House of Commons so narrow, it will really depend on what the Prime Minister thinks he can get away with, as no one wants to lose their power by annoying their own MPs, or the public at large. This even if military action is the most morally right and security conscious thing to do. So there you have it. No doubt by the time you're watching this, most of the key personalities will have changed, but hopefully this will give you an underpinning knowledge which will benefit our next video. I'll see you then.